Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. International Children's Day in Poland is being marked with a symbolic installation in Warsaw dedicated to Ukrainian children killed during the war, highlighting the human cost of Russia's invasion as it continues into its fourth year. Now, this comes amid wider global warnings, escalating child hunger, mass displacement, and strained humanitarian funding are reshaping childhood across multiple conflict zones. And now to speak about it all, we're joined in the studio by Helena Krajewska, spokesperson for Polish Humanitarian Action. To have you with us, welcome.
Good morning.
So it is Children's Day, but we have to unfortunately start with the negative things at the moment. If we're looking at the kind of displacement, the scale of this, tell us a bit like how bad it is for children right now in conflict zones across the world.
So we know that 1 in every 5 children is either escaping from war zone or living in the war zone. So not sure what is better to escape or to live in these conditions. So we have some hotspots, of course, like Gaza Strip, like Lebanon right now, of course, children of Iran. But there are some conflicts that are hidden, some conflicts that are not being spoken about in the media, for example, Sudan. But also, of course, Ukraine is one place where I think we already forgot that the war there is cruel to children. It is really cruel because it's not just about the bombing, it's not just about the injuries or children getting killed. It's also just stolen childhood for these children because they are spending their time underground. They are spending their time in acute stress, worrying about families, worrying about, for example, their fathers who are on the front line or losing some members of the family. So it's a huge strain on the children, and the things that are happening to them now, they will have a huge impact throughout their whole life, throughout adulthood. So I call it stolen childhood.
On that stolen childhood, also, I mean, you mentioned injuries, so it's not just the physical, right? It's also the mental, right? So tell us a bit more about what that looks like, how children are coping. I mean, it's a big number if we look at a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, but also what can be done about it and what your agency is doing it.
So basically, the children who are living in this kind of conditions, they are experiencing different forms of stress every day, and they can react to that differently. I know children who are hiding their feelings, who are not really behaving like children, more like small adults, because they are very occupied, they are stressed, they are silent, even sometimes they are without emotions. And then you have children who are hyperactive, who are showing the stress through screaming, through even some forms of aggression. And it's even worse for, I think, for the teenagers, because they are themselves, they are in a very, very vulnerable state, even in the best conditions. When you are a teenager, it's not easy. And if you are a teenager in a war zone, feeling that your future is being stolen from you, feeling that your friends are also in danger, or if you are a refugee teenager, and you have to learn a new language, you have to cope with new school, new living conditions, it's very, very difficult for them. And ourselves as Polish Humanitarian Action, we have been working in Ukraine since 2014, and one of the biggest thing for us there is actually protection. So the psychosocial support, the support, like group support, individual support, case management of families, of children, also of elderly. But today is a Children's Day, so let's talk about children, because they need a lot of support. And in this very particular situation, usually the focus of parents, of course they are focusing on their children, but more on their well-being, if we talk about if they have something to eat, somewhere to sleep, if they are safe in the physical sense. But we often forget that they are also bearing this stress of the parents. They are bearing the trauma inside of themselves, and they are just children.
As you mentioned, children and also lost childhood, as you said. We're also marking, I mean, there's currently right now in Warsaw, there will be this installation very much dedicated to the loss of Ukraine. So children that either been killed, or various numbers take around 20,000 Ukrainian children that have been abducted, or hard to trace where they are. So with that, what kind of impact can you sense if a child then is taken away, if they're from Ukraine, maybe somewhere How damaging is that? Because then you have tracing them and also reintegration. That must be very difficult.
I think if we talk about children, but any human being, if you are losing your roots, it's very, very difficult to come back to your normal self. You are losing the sense of being part of a community, part of the family. Sometimes if we talk about very young children, they can have some problems with readjusting to a new reality, even to language, back to, for example, back to Ukrainian. But I feel it's a huge emotional damage to the children. Also, the children who are living in temporary occupied territories, and I saw many of them crossing first the border in Sumska Oblast, but now this border is non-functioning, but the border from Belarus to Ukraine in Volynska Oblast. They have a very, very long way to come back to Ukraine, and they are usually terrified. They're usually very, very scared to even say something about the reality of what they lived through. But they still have hope that they can get back this future that was, as we said, again, stolen from them. But let's hope that these children can have a successful future and they can reintegrate with some family members at least.
Can you tell us a bit of some of the direct, tangible programs that you're running on how you're supporting children and families in Ukraine, for instance, you mentioned? So,
for example, as I said, we have the psychosocial support to children. We also have mobile psychologists if we don't have a center nearby. Our mobile psychologists are working in the schools. They are coming to smaller places, smaller villages, for example, towns, to support children. We are also working with schools. It can be support not to the children themselves, but to the school, but that also helps to make the conditions they learn in better. We also have support through, for example, hygiene packages to the front line. That's for the families. And we help in the transit centers, for example. So if families are getting evacuated, voluntarily or not, from the front line, they have to go through the transit center. And that's where they can get the very basic support, but for example, financial support. If you are escaping just with one backpack, some bags, you need support. You have to build your life again. And also we are helping in Poland, of course. We have this social inclusion program where we support the families. For example, we help the families to get back on their feet, have some language classes, have some formation trainings so they can get a job and children can go to school, for example. And also a lot of children from Ukraine, but also other countries in Poland, they are part of our Pajacyk program. So they are getting meals, hot meals at schools, and they are getting psychological support. Because what is something interesting I discovered in February when I was in Ukraine, that many children who are joining classes in Ukraine from abroad, for example from Poland, they are showing more, like higher level of stress, really acute stress, higher than children in Kharkiv, for example. That was said to me by a teacher, because they are far away from this village that they had, this net of connections, the community that they had. And they are in Poland, they are far away, or in Slovakia or Germany. While in Ukraine, yes, they have more stress because of imminent threat, but they have this community around and they have the support of teachers, of the families, of neighbors. So it's very difficult to say who is bearing bigger brunt of this word.
Yeah, but I think in both cases, really extremely difficult to be a child, as you said. You know, this is trauma that's going to be with them for a while. One thing you touched on already is as well nutrition, or rather malnutrition. So let's extend a little bit further, if we can, with your work and looking at other conflict zones, Lebanon, Gaza, etc. What do you see there in terms of how the situation is with feeding children right now?
Well, we have a huge problem now in the world because over 33 million children in the world, they are basically malnourished. They need immediate support, food support, on different stages. For example, 5 million children in Sudan, they are experiencing violence, displacement, and also hunger, sometimes catastrophic hunger. So in places like this, it's very difficult to provide children with substantial meals with regular support, because maybe next day they have to move, they have to escape. And we are helping on the border between Sudan and South Sudan. And we see the state in which the families arrive to South Sudan. They are just exhausted. They sold everything they had to even provide a small meal for the children. So they're arriving with nothing really, not even this backpack. And they are arriving to the country that has already very catastrophic levels of malnutrition or even hunger in some places. So this is a very difficult situation. How to support people who are already coming in very bad state in a place where the levels of hunger are high.
But just, I'm conscious of time, just quickly in terms of maybe some silver linings in terms of people want to help, or listening now, watching this right now. Tell us a bit of something that can give us hope, perhaps.
I think every individual can support. We had cases of people coming to us and saying, listen, I want to fund the support program for the children in Gaza, and that happened. So if you want to support our work for children in the world, you can go to our website, ph.org.pl, and donate once or become a regular donor, and we can change some children's world with that.
Yeah, I think, and also every little helps, as the saying goes, and I think you guys are doing a lot of work there, so, and it doesn't seem to end. But look, thank you so much for that, Helena Krajewska, the spokesperson, Polish Humanitarian Action, for that insightful interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.